Did it work? Can anyone hear us?
I muted it, so.
Oh.
Hold on.
Oh, I don't have the chat up.
You're still on the left.
Yeah, we're on a, 30 to 45 second delay.
Okay.
So,
Yay, they can hear us.
yay.
Yay.
So great. All right.
We're doing it.
Exciting stuff.
We will wait for 3 minutes to start. Because stop making fun of us. You're so mean to us, Oz.
Our interjections are going to be 30 seconds late, but just know that our moderator is harassing us.
Yeah, he's in the room with us, and he's got this big grin on his face.
You're cringe.
Cringe. Oh, also, there's a thunderstorm, so forgive us if you hear thunder or rain. Or if the power goes out and then we suddenly disappear. That's what happened.
That would suck.
Yeah. But, hopefully that doesn't happen.
Hopefully.
Oh, yay! I'm glad.
It's really, really heavy rain.
Yeah.
Very sudden.
It's like right outside the door. There's a drain and there's so much water falling down. Thank you, Oz.
I would put it on a hotspot or something, but the phone plan that I'm on doesn't include that in any way. So
I
good
have a
luck, guys.
hotspot, so we can use mine just
Yay.
in case. Yay! I'm glad. Thank you, guys. So should we start now or wait a little bit?
I think we might as well start now because we're already on a little bit of a delay.
You're really delayed, so I'd probably start.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just so we don't accidentally run over or something.
So should I go to the next thing?
You should go to the next thing.
Yay. Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
You can go first.
Hi, my name is Januar. I am 20 years old. Those are my pronouns. Those are my various handles for different things, etc. I've been into Kagepro probably since middle school, so I was not super into it in the major years, you know what I mean? But I really, really enjoy it, and it's practically the only thing I talk about, so thumbs up.
Besides Milgram.
And Milgram.
Hi, I'm Riel. I'm 21. Pronouns are they, them. You've probably seen me around a little bit before, at least, if you know Kagerou Project. I like Saru. Those are my thoughts.
Delicious art.
I got into Kagerou Project thanks to Sans, which is a fun little fact about me. And here's our special thanks to Oz. Oz, yell.
Wow, that was Oz.
Yeah, that was Oz.
Got Dougal in the bottom right corner. He is my special little boy. And then we have Mittens.
We have Mittens. Yums drew the mittens on the left. I love them.
They were very helpful to us on this journey. Did you skip a slide?
Oh, did I? Oh, I
Yes.
did.
Okay, we wanted to just put this right at the front only because most of you probably know basically everything there is to know about Kagepro, but I thought we would put that in there in case anybody's not really comfortable with discussions of that, because all of these things are going to be part of what we're talking about today.
Yes. We're probably going to talk about it at length. So if you're not comfortable with that, feel free to leave.
Yeah, these notes are just kind of silly things we had for Mary.
Speaking of the notes.
Sorry, dogs.
Sorry, the door to the outside opened and the
Yes.
rain started coming in.
And the dogs got very upset.
Yeah, so...
We're so professional.
The second to last thing, just happened.
It's okay, I walked it.
Yeah, we tried to get to the note on the sudden barking before they started barking, but we were unsuccessful.
Yes.
Just some notes, only because Mary, her name can be written multiple different ways and has been throughout Kagepro canon, so we're just using that because that's what it tends to use on like Wiki and the more recent novels or whatever else. So it's just easier if we stick to that. And as well as the eye power names, especially with Konoha and Ene, some of their like the characters used with them or the way that they're said sometimes change. So we're just using whatever's listed on the wiki. So if it gets a little bit confusing, I just check that out to make sure.
I have only read 2 light novels, and that's Kano's and Haruka's, and that's because I like them. I meant to read the rest of the light novels, but I never got around to it. So if there's something that I might have missed due to that, feel free to talk about it at the end during discussion time.
Read more light novels.
I will read more light novels, Oz.
Read them.
Anyway, I hope you enjoy our panel.
So our panel is Grief and Growth in Kagerou Project. So of course we'll be starting with the grief, their reactions to death, or otherwise some sort of heartbreak in their life. Starting off with Ayano, she's a very interesting character because depending on which source media you focus on the most, she can have a very wide personality. She's very protective of her siblings. She makes herself into a martyr a little bit more often than you'd expect. Whenever Saira was trying to hurt people, she decided that it was her job to step in. Especially like when her mother died, she decided it was her job to take care of her siblings, etc. So she has this whole life story built into her head that she needs to be the one to help others. She needs to be the one who makes the sacrifices and suffers for it. And I believe that she represents a form of denial. As well as she could have done in some areas, she sort of tried to force their lives back to normal or sacrifice herself to get them back to normal. But ultimately, it did just make everything worse.
I wanted to talk about Kido and Kano a little bit because I feel like them as foils, which Oz told me I should explain. It's just characters that like parallel each other. They both kind of have this tendency to hide themselves away from others, like especially Kano, because he sits there and he lies about everything. And Kido, she just feels like she should disappear. And they both also take on this sense of responsibility. Kano, he kind of takes on this older brother role after Ayano passes because he feels like he needs to make up that spot in their lives. And so he tries to give everyone else hope by being like, hey, we can do this thing that we did as kids and we'll feel better eventually. And it also gives people like something to do rather than just sitting around and thinking like, oh man, my sister just died. That sucks. And then there's Kido, who also takes on responsibility. And it's in a different way, like kind of a more motherly way where she, makes food for people. She tries to take care of everyone's emotions. And you kind of see them help each other out with that. And it's very, very interesting.
Along those lines, Sato's an interesting one only because you can see how the other two siblings reacted to everything that happened to them before and after living with the Tatayamas. He had a very difficult upbringing. He lost Hanako, his dog. He really lost everything, and as desperate as he was to connect with people, that overwhelming noise in his head was really unbearable. So he's refused to use his power. He tries to kind of escape that part of it. But I think it's interesting because he's one of the few characters who genuinely gained more independence in some ways. Instead of doing what Kido Akano did and focused on their relationships and following a role in that, he sort of lost himself in part-time jobs and going out and doing things. And, you know, he maintains a very friendly air about him, but he's really unable to connect with his siblings in the way that they need to be.
Oh, yay, Mary. She's the one that I really wanted to talk about for like a long time. So I think Mary is really, really interesting because she has this generational trauma of their whole family believing like everyone hates us. You see it in everyone. Azami, Tsukihiko, Shion, you just see it in everyone. And she goes through this not really like thinking it could be that bad at first, and then she finally gets out and leaves like she wanted to. And immediately she's proved wrong, and that her parents were right, that her grandmother was right, and she instead now has put herself in this prison because of her mother's death. And she refuses to leave because she's so scared that either she's going to get hurt or that she's going to hurt someone else close to her again. So she both refuses to meet anyone new, and she just sits there and takes it all on herself. And then when she finally is able to make a friend, she like refuses to let them go, kind of like how she refused to leave the house for so long. And you see it in the time loops, like her refusing to let go of her friends and be okay with loss is such a central theme of her character, and you just see it constantly repeating over and over and over, and it's just like PTSD for that to happen. I'm just gonna make sure I'm not missing anything. Yep. I think NA is also really interesting because she's a foil to Shintaro. They both cope with grief in extremely, extremely different ways. NA, she pretty much just refuses to think about it at all. She goes, well, it happened, can't do anything about it, so I'm just gonna not think about it at all. And unlike Shintaro, who has pretty much decided to completely entomb himself in the past, she just goes, nope, not gonna think about it. Nope, just gonna sit here. And it's not until she's like forced to actually deal with it, like when Kana turns into Haruka, that she freaks out and she just completely breaks down and just can't deal with it. And then there's Shintaro. He's a really complicated guy. Losing someone that young can really, really affect your mind state. It will definitely mess with how you view the relationships around you, and it kind of teaches you a lesson that anyone can be gone at any time. And it's not, like, very often that someone loses a parent that young. And I feel like a lot of people forget that he did lose his dad when it comes to analyzing him, because he's been out of the picture for so long, but it's still something that messes with his mental state. And then there's Ayano, which, Ayano. I think she's also a really, really complicated situation with him. Like, he already has trouble making friends and understanding others, and she was trying to provide some kind of understanding to him that he just couldn't really accept. And so he constantly shrugged her off, believing like he can't get along with anyone because if he does, they could die like his father. But then Ayano does die. And it's weird because it's specifically a suicide, which is a really rough thing to experience. And when that kind of thing happens to you, the first thing that runs through your mind is like, what could I have done to stop it? What could I have done more to like make her want to stay? And so he sits there and he blames himself the entire time. And it kind of adds a new type of grief to his life where he is forced to deal with the fact, like, not the fact, but that he feels he's caused someone else's death, and she was one of his only friends. And then there's Haruka, who, again, is one of the only people that Shintaro was ever really able to be close with. And he thinks everything is going well, and then, like in the novels, it just suddenly he's gone. And it's just like his father again. It's just he has this constant theme of just losing people in his life. And he's too young to know how to deal with that kind of thing. And it's also interesting because it seemed like Haruka was the only one he ever really felt close with, like able to talk to someone in a kind of way that he never had before because people just don't get along with him well. And that's even shown more in the manga, where he finally thinks like, oh, I have a friendship, things are going to be fun, and I might be able to go to school, and there will finally be a point of having friends. And then Haruka just dies one day. And it's like everything he's been working up to feel better about what has happened in his past, to like finally maybe open up to people, it just all falls apart because Haruka's gone, Ayano killed herself, Takane's gone. It's like he just doesn't, it just all breaks down. And he feels he probably deserves it because this whole time he's been so cruel that, at least that's what he believes, but it's really just an autistic 16-year-old. And so it's really interesting to see how he views the world and believes that it's a betrayal and somehow his fault.
This guy I love talking about, and I'm so sorry for the image, but I thought it was funny. I thought it was really funny.
I forgot to put that.
Fascinating yet stupid. I find him really interesting only because of, I guess, mostly how he received his snake. In almost every version of this story, she dies and he receives a snake. Obviously, there's certain times where that was not the case, but most of the time that's what it seems to be. And the snake is born out of a wish, but not in a self-defensive way. A lot of them were trying to get away from something in their life, or like struggling to be able to do something, you know? I mean, with Kano, he wanted to be able to change shape and confuse people he didn't want, you know, after he's received abuse. Kido never wanted to be seen. She wanted to hide away. Seito wanted to connect with people. He was so desperate to that he began receiving their thoughts. But Kenjiro instead has the wish to see his wife again. So it's a very different kind of wish, and he wants to be able to see her. He wants a world where they can be together, which is where Sairo comes in. Sairo promises him, just as he promised Azami long ago, that they would receive a perfect world with each other. And I find it very interesting how he's one that's refusing to move on. And as things continue, you know, it gets worse and worse, and his life continues to be torn apart, and yet this is the only thing he's focused on, even past his own children. You know, I know that he wasn't, you know, aware of everything that was going on, but still, this is something that he's kind of technically doing, or at least his wish is carrying out on his behalf. And then we have Azami. I love her so much. And I find her snake that she'd created once Shion was born to be so interesting. She loved her so much that she wished to be able to transmit that to her, which is why the Favoring Eyes was created. Every single one of her snakes exists to help her interact with the world in some way. A lot of times was self-defense, other times was just not really understanding how these sort of things work. which I thought it was really interesting, parallels to autism, etc. Difficulty connecting with the world, having to find different methods to connect with people, and then finally meeting up with Tsukihiko, which is, he's another person who's sort of been outcast and they really, find each other. Sayuru had promised to help her see the world, and she created him because she had a wish to understand the world and herself. He appears in those pages in the manga, and stays with her the whole time. She continually asks the snake, what am I? What is this sort of world? She discovers all sorts of interesting things, and then as soon as she comes into contact with humanity, they reject her and try to hurt her. So she, over and over again, creates more and more snakes to protect her, creates awakening to heal herself, creates concealing to hide away. Every snake except Sayuru was created specifically to protect her, except Favoring, but that's kind of along a different line. She uses the one by one to continue to keep her safe, especially, in that scene in the anime where she's using them one by one just to keep her and her daughter safe from harm. But she sort of neglects the first snake she ever had, because he was born from more curiosity and not a need to defend oneself. So I think it's interesting that was given to Kenjo, because it's such a different snake from almost every other one of them. And then when Shion and Mary die, she has to choose which one gets to live, which would be absolutely devastating. She was so worried that Shion might possibly be hurt or killed because of the fact that she was even alive. So of course, once her daughter and granddaughter die, it's heartbreaking, and she picks Mary to be able to go back. And we don't get a lot of her thoughts from this time here. I'm going to imagine that she wanted to be with Shion and she wanted to give her granddaughter a chance at life. But as Riel said, Mary sort of doesn't do that for herself. She continues setting herself in time loops just to relive the good times again, despite her grandmother struggling to be able to give her a new chance. Sorry, that was such a ramble. Goodness.
It was good. So we're on to the next part, where we're going to talk about how they've learned to cope and how they've grown from their various issues.
Ayano's growth was kind of interesting because she had a bumpy road, to put it lightly, because of how important she was to the story, etc. But she has to try to live normally again, because over and over again through all these time loops, she's basically just been in the days hoping that Shintaro will finally remember, that she can help him remember as a snake. She's sort of locked in this sort of infinite afterlife. But now that she's suddenly back, she no longer has to carry the weight of everything. Her siblings have grown up a bit and matured. She no longer has to have that motherly influence. She's actually able to be herself. And unfortunately, based on where her life stopped, she now sort of just has to start over. But she's able to rely on friends. She's able to be open with them. There's no longer a present danger, so she's actually able to connect with them, and it's really meaningful. And I think about some of those anthology comics, and not all of them are considered like a canon type thing, but often she's depicted as being sort of excited, the way that she was pretending to be in high school, she finally is now.
Oh, that's so sweet. Were you done?
Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure. Kido and Kano, I love them. They're so siblings. I talked about it kind of briefly on their last slide, but I think it's really interesting that they grow to rely on each other, and that's really obvious in the last episode because, Kano finally breaks down and talks about how he's feeling and what happened, and Kido, she tries to, offer that she's there, and Kano doesn't really, the last time I think he felt like he really had that was with Ayano, and, So it's really nice that they get to tell each other, like, hey, you're not alone, you have me, I'm your good sibling, and I probably won't die soon. And I think they also kind of bring out the best in each other, and they help each other meet new people and become friends with new people, like as is shown with Momo. And I just think they're very sweet.
Okay, I love talking about him so much. He's one of my favorites. Only because, that first point, actually being able to connect with others, as difficult as his childhood was, and struggling, to finally understand what it is to be a person, he finds himself refusing to use his power because it makes him kind of uncomfortable. But even though he's using kind of a bit of escapism by just going off and working constantly, he's actually growing as a person. He's getting jobs. He's talking to his siblings in a way that's more productive, because they used to make fun of him quite a lot when he was a child, and now suddenly they're kind of on an equal level. He feels like he has a place in this world. He only uses his power in extreme circumstances and sort of therefore doesn't use it as a crutch. Like, Kido continues to try to hide away from people, throughout the series, and Kano will sort of, even just little trickery things, throughout it. He uses it, I think, one time, really?
Yeah.
I think it's just one time.
He definitely uses it in that scene with Kano.
Okay. Yeah, he's made efforts to connect with people without using that power, and it really, I think, shows, because he's actually grown up, which is a big part of Kagepro, is actually not just growing away from grief, but being able to grow up, learning what it is to transition through your life. And he's one of the few that can genuinely connect with other people, joke with them, make friends, and sort of think about his life in a much more positive light. He's clearly going through some things, but he's doing it much more productively, and for that reason I really enjoy him. He's such a funny fellow.
This is a mildly off topic, weird part to put this. I'm sitting in this thing, and there's like this hard thing right in front of my knee, and I keep accidentally kneeing it, and I almost yell every time I do it, and then I go, ugh, I have to be quiet, and it hurts really bad. Anyway.
Real topic.
I know, I'm sorry, I just had to complain. Okay, so anyway, Mary. Briefly mentioned earlier how she is able to finally make new friends when Seto shows up. And he's kind of like the door to her being able to make even more friends and to finally see that there are people out there who are willing to accept her monstrous origin. And they all kind of think of each other, well, not of each other, of themselves as monsters. And in that way, they can bond over what they've been through and how people have treated them in the past. And she kind of finally learns through them being there for her, especially when she wanted so badly to just go back and relive everything over and over. They were like, hey, it's all right, we're here for you. And she kind of learns that she's able to make her own future, and she doesn't need to sit there and fear it like her parents, like her grandparents. She's able to kind of look forward and learn to not fear what everyone has been fearing this entire time. And I think with Sairu, it's a similar thing, that they both had this awful fear of the future, that something bad is just going to happen, and they have to constantly be prepared for it, and they just have to constantly relive what was good. But she finally gets to break that cycle and finally move on from her like looping thinking. And then there's them. They make me cry like a little baby. I really love that they have this bond over having both lost someone extremely important to them, and they also force each other to deal with what has actually happened. In Shintaro's way, I mentioned, he tries to live in the past. He doesn't want to think that he even has a future. while NA, she wants to move on and not think about it at all. So they both kind of bring these sides out in each other, where Shintaro is forced out of the house, he's forced to actually interact with people because of NA, while NA, she has to see how it's affecting Shintaro and how it might be affecting herself. But she, like, so much of the time she's sitting there trying to make him feel better. And they're just good to each other. They're, like, I don't know. They're really, really close, and I really appreciate it. I think the manga handles it really, really well. They saved each other, and it's really good to have a friendship like that after going through such a devastating loss. I like them. They're good.
Once again, talking about this guy, his is such an interesting story because I've already talked about his reasonings for even gaining Siren in the first place. But he has to let go of his wish. That's the only way that any of this will end. He chooses to live with his wife in the days where she was taken to when she died all those years ago. And presumably there's no way out of there. They sort of literally walk off into a brilliant night sky, never to be seen again. Which, you know, is tragic because he gives up everything for that wish. And although it's technically been granted, it just shows that unlike a lot of these people, he didn't move past it. You know, Kido refusing to use her power would be her getting over her need to be concealed. But he actually achieves that wish, and therefore he really didn't move on in the way that everybody else did. I know it's very nice that, you know, they held hands and walked off together, but, you know, he says, like, hey, partner, thanks for looking out for me all this time. I almost feel like he doesn't get it, if that makes sense. He's a very frustrating character to me, because most of these people were able to move on in a way that we can understand, a very serious amount of growth in their character. But he, on the other hand, just sort of, it's kind of escapism in the most final way possible. He disappears with the woman he loves, and frankly leaves his kids in the dust. I mean, if he's never going to be there for them again, if he and his wife don't ever come back out of the days, I feel like it's unfair. I feel like it could be selfish, you know? So as much as I enjoy him as a character, you know, I, again, did not ultimately escape his influence. I find it frustrating. He didn't move on like everyone else did.
I think it's also really interesting that he and Zairu kind of have this similar mindset almost, where neither of them can really get past what has happened. And because of that, they choose to what pretty much seems like dying. And it's really interesting just to see how they are good examples of what it looks like to not be able to accept what has happened and to not be able to grow and move on.
Azami's kind of not a similar case exactly, but she also sort of just ends up in this world of her own creation, but she seems to be more satisfied with it, and she's not hurting anybody by staying there. She's sort of, I suppose, with her family. She got to see this horrific time loop finally come to an end, and she's met almost all these people in the days at some point and discussed with them, and she probably is glad to be over with that. It's very different because it's not like she gets a second chance the way the rest of them do. But I think it's very nice that she's able to finally rest, you know? But I've noticed that there's not a lot of evidence as to what exactly goes on after that ends. We see them, you know, moving on with their lives in the real world. But I know number 9 has been delayed 1,000,000 years by now. But I wonder if she's possibly going to be relevant within that, only because they kind of, not a cliffhanger because it's not super catching, but it's certainly an unfinished story in my mind.
Yay.
Yay.
It's our big favorites.
It's our big favorites.
Oh, skip. Oh,
You are
okay.
skipping so
I'm
many
sorry,
things.
I
Stop
fixed
messing
it.
up. This is your moderator speaking. Stop messing it up.
Thanks, Oz. Very helpful. Anyway, Haruka is really interesting because he he has to come to terms with death before dying way earlier than anyone else has. And he also has to come to terms with his mother dying. And we know from his father that he didn't his mother's death really affected everyone around him. And so everyone that he has loved has pretty much given up on him, and that's kind of why you see him not tell anyone later on that he's going to die. He doesn't want them to give up on him like he already has given up on himself. And because of that, he's unable to really look to the future and imagine that he does have a future, and it's understandable. He's got a terminal illness, but even that shows in how he gets Konoha and how he can't go back because he's already given up on himself, and he's pretty much just given up on all hope. But he's left there for 2 years to think about everything, and I don't think he really understands friendship or what being normal is in any kind of way, because he's already pretty othered from, when he was probably like 6. Actually, no, 10? Somewhere around there. But he seems to have this fixation on finally making friends and getting over that loneliness that's been with him ever since he was a child. And you see how he goes about it with Ene and, Takane and Shintaro. Because if you read the light novels, he puts so much thought into how they're reacting to him or how they're doing things around him. And he just loves his friends so much. And when he comes back, he still has the same thoughts. Like, he loves his friends and he wants to understand what friendship is because he didn't understand it as a kid. And Lost Day Hour, the comic and the song, they both really touch on that as well, where he's like, oh, guys, what do you think friendship is? And it's really interesting to see all the responses and how pretty much to everyone who goes, yeah, I guess it could be that. Huh, interesting. And it's not until the end where everyone, there's a sense of togetherness that is found in a lot of kagepro. And it's kind of like, maybe it didn't exactly click, but he doesn't have to understand friendship in such a rigid sense. He finally gets to just have friends. And because of this, he's Cyru's foil. Neither of them really had people with them. And while Cyru refused to understand the world and sat there and tried to hate everything and hated humans so much and felt so much like he just wanted to get back at Azami to make her somehow understand that she shouldn't bother with humans. But Haruka, despite knowing that he's going to die, he sits there and he still tries to make friends and he still tries to understand friendship, even if he feels hopeless. And I just really like the way that they're both written.
And now we have the guy.
The guy.
And please, forgive any discrepancies, because I read everything, but I've forgotten most of it, so I reread some stuff. And
Stinky guy.
yeah, we're doing our best with this guy.
No title has
days
never
come.
left my brain. He lives in my brain. He won't leave.
Alright, I figured we would go through his whole thing, I guess. I already said this, I guess, but she finds herself in a strange world, and this is where she wants to actually understand who and what she is. She's shown as a shadow most of this, until finally she can see her reflection, and she's with the snake, and this is the beginning of her entire world. They find themselves alone in this place. She finds that it's really quite a dangerous place for her. She finds that she's unable to connect with people. Well, not just that they're actively trying to hurt her. They hate her, and she doesn't even know what she is in the end.
And it's really interesting that Cyru, he learns from this that humans are hateful and that he and Azami are monsters and that they need to stay away from everyone. And they kind of only really have each other throughout all of this.
She finds Tsukihiko in the forest, and she has a child with him, and she's already had a difficult time connecting with others. This is where she creates, favoring eyes to be able to express her love to Shion, and she sort of not forgets what her initial wish was, but she no longer really needs to figure out what she is if what she is loved by somebody who she loves back. She sort of no longer has that desperate need for information because she's kind of content with how her life is going.
And I think, in a way, Saru, he views this as kind of a betrayal against him, because this whole time, all they've learned from humanity is that they're going to hurt her. And it's like he's sitting there thinking, you guys, you're idiots, you're only going to be hurt. And he feels forgotten in this way, and that all they went through was forgotten. And Shion is like the proof of this, that she actually tried to be with a human, and he just doesn't understand and refuses to forgive.
And ultimately her wish. I looked at these panels, again it says, there isn't much time left to keep Tsukihiko alive, and for how long will Shion live? She's very aware of the fact that she is not aging, and they are. Or at least Tsukihiko is much, much faster than she realized. And she becomes absolutely desperate to save her family. She wants to find some sort of way where they can live together, or where she can at least be with them. She's terribly desperate.
And Saru, in a way, he feels a similar way, where he would rather trap Azami away and keep her safe than have her be with humans and understand what real love feels like, because he wants to keep her safe in his weird, distorted Saru way. And it's really similar to Mary as well, because Mary just wants to keep everyone safe in her time loop, and they never have to get hurt. They just can relive everything all the time.
And this is one that took me absolutely forever to actually get written down, because I couldn't find this written anywhere on the internet. Maybe I just was not looking in the correct places. But in that anime MV version, as well as on Spotify, I think it was the Macaco City Albums version, there's this monologue in the beginning, and it's kind of hard to read. I had to ask for help being able to write certain things. I can't translate it directly, but in a summary, he welcomes his master and promises that whatever wish he has will be fulfilled. He promises to be able to teach her how to create this world, and that whatever desires she has will come true. He makes this promise to her. And then we come to Mary's death, because after Azami is attacked with her family, she sort of runs away into this place. She decides that even her being around is too dangerous for her family. So she, like we said before, has to sort of just watch from afar, from as much as she can, after being trapped in there by Saru. And he has control of her again. He feels that she's now reliant on him again, And, Mary grows up believing that because her mother disappeared and that she almost attacked when she was a kid, that this is the only way that they're going to live their lives. They're only going to be mistreated, that they're going to be hated, etc. But Mary doesn't seem to grasp this. Her mother always tells her not to go out, that it's dangerous, but being a curious child, Mary, of course, goes out, and as soon as she does, she gets into this terrible, terrible incident where she and her mother are killed. Because Azami chooses Mary to live, she receives the Queen Snake, which, again, is sort of because trauma brings people together, all the snakes trying to seek out the queen is just another sort of allegory in here, I suppose. But Sairu also begins to follow her because he believes that possibly he can have a world where he's valued in the world where he had the control. So he believes that he's going to be able to actually control things this time around.
And the other thing that's really interesting is that I feel like this is kind of the final proof for him that everyone who is considered a monster is really going to be rejected. And I feel like what he does to Mary and how he's constantly putting her through this is his way of trying to teach her, like, the world is cruel and the world isn't going to love you, and that it's selfish to even bother to try to believe that the world could love you. And it's almost like this is his way of reliving everything that happened to him in his past. He's making this new Medusa and making her understand that the world hates her. And he's just trying to recreate what he knows and what he's been through, similar to Mary.
And then, of course, we come to Ayano's death. After quite a bit, Ayano has figured out exactly what's going on. Kano's also clearly aware of quite a lot of this. But Ayano becomes a martyr. She decides that it is her responsibility to kill herself so that her family, her loved ones, can continue living safely. She believes that by jumping off this balcony, that she would prevent Sairu from collecting all the snakes, and therefore he would have no need to hurt anybody else. She has it in her head that this is exactly what's going to happen. But unfortunately, I'm sorry.
It's okay. There's so many parallels.
Failure.
What?
Live stream failure.
We're fine. Oz is so mean to us. Anyway, I think it's really interesting that there's so many parallels to the way that Sairu's feeling, like of this weird protection and sacrificing something in order to protect the person that he loves and wants to keep safe. And you see it with so many things, with Azami locking herself away, with Ayano doing this. And it's just interesting to see how love does that to people, and it causes so much pain. And I think that's why he's he feels so strongly about what's going on.
And then we come to the time loops themselves. Sairu is not willing to just throw away his plan after so long of trying to create this world where he has control over what happens. So he does begin to kill certain individuals who are compatible with those snakes. I honestly chose the two left panels because I thought they were really, really funny. Especially that last one. That's a good one. But he begins to kill them anyway. So he, despite understanding, surely, what Ayano thought she was doing, he's still willing to continue to harm others just to bring back what he thought was his perfect life. Konoha.
Oh, I love Konoha. As mentioned before, there's lots of parallels in Kagepro. And Sairu, he kind of tries to find someone that will understand him in the way he feels. And those two people are Konoha and Mary. In Konoha, he views him as a brother, and just like, you've been through what I've been through, so why don't you understand how I'm feeling? And you shouldn't be able to understand friendship and love and all these things because of what we've been through. And it's similar to how Azami began to understand friendship and love, and that she loves humans. And Sairu just refuses to open himself up to the world and refuses to accept that maybe he can actually be loved, even if it's in some weird sort of roundabout way. And you also see it in the lyrics of Outer Science, where he sits there and the whole song is directed at how Mary is selfish for wanting to be loved. And he just doesn't get it at all, because it doesn't make sense.
And then we have his end, I suppose. He's finally cast aside. He desperately wants to be alive. Throughout most of this entire thing, he was very calm and collected and calculating and ruthless. But right at the end, it's clear he just gets very scared, and it's kind of sad to watch. He's desperate. He begs them to make a wish because he realizes that this is the end, that he has hurt these people so badly, how could they ever want him to continue living? And so, because nobody needs a snake of clearing eyes, now that they've all sort of metaphorically moved past, that grief, their eyes are clear by now. They understand their world, they understand each other, they've moved on, they're ready for the future. And so he just sinks away into the haze.
I feel very strongly about him, as you can see.
Graphic design is your passion.
It is my passion, clearly. I think he's cool. I really like his design. I like him. He's cool. I like him.
The end. I hope you enjoy Riel's art. It's absolutely delicious.
Thank you.
It's so tasty.
The manga saga panel just came up.
Nice.
Yay.
Oh. And then discussion time.
Discussion time. It'll probably take like a minute.
Yeah, there's going to be a massive delay between when we receive a question and when we answer.
Yes.
I'm so sorry, but we'll do our very best. I hope you like art. That's my ball pit I'm about to put in.
So I guess we sit here and talk about whatever we want now.
Yeah.
Oz, what are your thoughts?
What?
What are your thoughts,
I don't
Oz?
have any.
Oh, thank you guys. I'm just seeing the stuff you're saying now.
I hope you guys like the ball pit. I was scrambling to do that at, what was that, 5:52 I finished it, so.
Yeah, like 8 minutes before this.
Yeah.
I made the Shintaro on the left for a cover of Summertime Record, which depending on whenever it comes out, you'll probably hear about it from me. I'll post it and stuff.
I'm glad you guys like it. Thank you. Yeah, I love your art.
Thank you.
So tasty.
You're so sweet to me. So if you guys have any questions or thoughts, you can go ahead and talk about it, and we will also talk about it.
Nice.
Nice.
And I was timing myself this whole time. We actually just, hit the ideal time. I'm so glad.
I know. I'm surprised that we actually
Ideal,
did.
like Kunikita.
Yes. Question and comment time.
Yeah. And I saw what you had said about Azami previously, and I'm so sorry for getting that wrong. I genuinely remember nothing from that novel, so I'll definitely have to reread that after we're done.
I'm reading through the past stuff now.
I'm glad, thank you.
Hashtag slow.
Yay, thank you. We're so slayful. I should not have said that.
You should know.
You killed it, just
I was
like-
gonna make that joke.
yeah. Oh my gosh.
Ooh,
Oh!
dependency.
Anna and Shintaro.
Yeah, I'd have to say.
Yeah. I think after everything is done with, they are not gonna separate from each other at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think about, Kano and Kido were very difficult, but the difference is, Ene and Shintaro were, together constantly. They had absolutely no separation. He had no contact with the outside world except through his weird internet forums. He was the only real person he talked to, so, And with the Momo and Hibiya thing, we were worried that we weren't going to have, enough time, so we picked the ones that we thought we could talk about in the most detail and most knowledgeably.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I love Momo and Hibiya.
I think the way that
If any characters don't show up, it's because we hate them.
No! The only character I hate in Kagerou Project is... Give me a sec, gotta think of it. You know that guy that comes up to Momo and is just like, hey, you want to be an idol? I don't like that guy at all. Freaks me out. Anyway, I think the way that Momo grieves is really interesting because she also blames herself, and she, similarly to Kido and Kano, she kind of takes it upon herself to take care of her family. And that's pretty much all I have to say on her. And while with Hibiya and Hiyori, I would recommend Hope's fic. I can't remember what it's called right now. If anyone has the link, that would be nice. But it's really good. It's from Hiyori's point of view, and it touches really, really well on how she's written and how she feels about Hibiya and how they feel about each other.
Also, Marina, you're making me realize I really just need to reread them all because my memory is horrendous. But
Brain bad.
a little bit.
Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about that, Kano and Kido's abuse and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was always difficult.
Yeah. Because I think that feeds... Yes, it's Adolescence in Red. Definitely recommend it. It's extremely well written. But anyway, I think Kano, he kind of learned from his mother to act some sort of way, while Kido, she felt like she didn't really need to be around, at least from what I've read about her. I haven't really read the novels with her involved. So I think a lot of their abuse kind of shows how they react to things now.
Yeah.
Does anyone want recommendations of what else handles grief well?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Really? Do you?
Yes.
Do you really, truly?
Yes.
Oh,
Just say it if we run out of time.
Undertale. Everyone should play Undertale. Flowey's in it. I love Flowey.
Undertale.
I would also recommend Live Alive. It has a big cast similar to Kagepro. It deals with grief really, really well, and how it's similar to how Cyra refuses to move on. I can hear myself over there.
Our favorite songs.
My favorite songs.
Oh god.
I was talking about this earlier. I love Summertime Record, I love Mary's Fictional World, and I love Fireworks in the Summer End. But I also really like Lost Day Hour, Lost Time Memory, and Tomei Answer. But Tomei Answer makes me cry, so I can't listen to it.
For me, probably like one of my favorites is Dead and Seek. I don't know why everybody keeps like ranking it really low on their tier lists. I see you guys,
I love
and
Dead and
it's
Seek.
so good. I think you're just objectively wrong.
If you rank Dead and Seek too low, we're going to hunt you for sport.
This is true.
This is very true.
For legal reasons, no, it's not.
But yes, it is.
My favorite character arcs? Shintaro, definitely.
That's kind of a tough one for me.
Actually, no, Haruka too.
Oh my god.
Oh. I really, really want to see how Haruka is handled in number 9, if it ever
Number
comes
9.
out.
Oh my god. Oh, I can't tell you how excited I was when I first saw that, and like I was following like the translation group when they were talking about the like scavenger hunt type thing.
Yeah, same.
So I'm hoping.
I'm hoping it still comes out, but if not, that's okay. I'll just sit here and think about it.
I'll sit here and think about it. I'll think hard enough to bring it into existence.
Mary's a good
Just like
choice.
Kagepro.
So true.
Shinto and Kano's growth.
I was actually going to talk about that, but then I was worried that we weren't going to have time.
We'll talk about it now.
We have like 4
I will.
minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. I think they're really interesting because they both want to find something to blame. While Shintaro, he sits there and he blames himself and feels like it's kind of his self-punishment where he doesn't let himself leave as a form of punishment. He doesn't let himself grow. Like he's just making himself suffer. While Kano, on the other hand, he also wants something to blame, but he doesn't know exactly how to go about it. And so it seems like he blames, Kenjiro, but he also wants to blame Shintaro, just because he feels like he needs someone to blame. And maybe in a way that can be Shintaro, that can be Kenjiro, that can be Sairu. whoever, they just tend to blame each other. Well, not each other, but, which is something that suicide will definitely do to someone. It'll definitely make you want to blame someone about the whole situation.
Marina's talking about the eye ability being metaphors for trauma responses. I don't know that I could really articulate myself now, but I believe that line of thinking is absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these things represent different reactions in people's grief, different responses in terms of how people try to get away from their trauma, avoiding, like you said, repressing, etc., and trying to... all these characters, they receive their snakes in a way to try to run away from whatever's scaring them, run away to something that hurt them, or from an idea that was bothering them. And the only way that they can really heal from it is from sort of doing the opposite of that, rejecting what they were relying on, which is honestly what a lot of people have to do, in therapy situations. They have to learn how to get rid of certain behaviors that get them stuck into spirals, even though that behavior was created because they were going through something really difficult.
You're so smart.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not very great at talking, but I definitely think it's definitely coping behaviors and definitely the flashbacks. As someone who's had flashbacks, I think it shows really well what it's like to constantly be sitting there and you suddenly have to relive this awful thing that's happened. I just really like the way that Shintaro is written. I think he's a very good example of what it's like to live through a suicide and live through various deaths around you all at one time.
Nice.
Nice. Thank you. I'm glad that you guys like it.
Yay, I'm so glad. And I think we're basically out of time. If you guys have any last minute things, that would be really cool, but otherwise I think we will be ending the stream in just a minute.
Yeah, and then we're gonna go get ice cream.
Oh my god, I can't wait for ice cream.
Oh, Euphemia's here. I like her music.
And thank you guys for the support. Oh, I just hit Riel's knees so hard.
Oh, my knees keep getting hit
I'm so
today.
sorry. Yeah, I always found it, I don't know, with Haruka, what Ray just said, with how he is presented with whatever would have supposedly fixed his life and immediately rejects it. I don't know, I just find it funny. I understand why, but most of them just took it and ran. He just decided not to.
For the person who asked the type of ice cream, I want to get butterbrickle, which is butterscotch flavored.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sounds delish.
It is delicious.
I like strawberry.
Good for
Oz
you,
likes
Oz.
strawberry. What are you gonna get?
Shoot. I enjoy cookie dough and mint chocolate chip and bubblegum, even though it's kind of awful. I gotta mix all three of them,
Ew.
That's so mean.
Sorry. Okay. That's probably all we have to say. I love you all.
Thank you guys. I'm doing a heart at the screen, even though you cannot see it.
Imagine I'm also doing a heart, but I'm not really doing one because I'm holding my phone, but just imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yay.
Thank you
Goodbye,
guys.
everyone.
Bye.
Have a
Bye.
good time. Oz says bye as well.
I did.
Okay. Let's say bye at once. Ready?
Okay.
1, 2.